Yo, Mono Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good evening, Nant. Shalom, Dumelang. Good people, it is a Sunday evening. You know what that means. Once it hits 8 p.m., it's time for Liberty and Friends, only on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Do I not have an interesting show for you tonight? Welcome to it. If you're just joining us, make sure you have a warm beverage with you. It's pretty windy and rainy here in Cape Town, so I hope the fire conversation that we're going to have tonight will keep you warm. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty, and yeah, guys, welcome to it. This is how we end the week, and this is thankfully becoming your premiere week-ending news roundup show here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Whether you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube right now to it, you know what the price of admission is. Hit that like button. Do it now. Hit that like button, take your little mouse, scroll over and hit the click like button. And remember, as I like to joke on the show, every time you hit that like button, a kid in Africa gets a meal. I probably shouldn't joke about that because I am a kid in Africa who needs a meal. Speaking about meals and the like, if you're enjoying the new feature I put on my channel, including on my personal channel, that's the Sihle Ngobese YouTube channel, head over there and subscribe. You can follow my weight loss journey, and what a first week it has been. I've taken the resolution to get my health in order. Obesity is not a funny issue, and it's not a cute or acceptable thing as the hashtag fat acceptance lefties will have you believe. Obesity is a killer, and I'm taking responsibility for my health, embarking on a weight loss journey, and has it not been a first week from heaven, if I can call it that, given the result. I'm down in a week. I'm down 6.4 kilograms, and the weight is coming off using a fasting-based ketogenic diet. But that's not for now. That's for my personal journey. As I said, remember, you can go to my personal page, that's Sihle Ngobese on YouTube, and you can follow the journey there. With that being said, welcome to it. If you've just joined us, I see the numbers are ticking up. Hey, tada, welcome to it. Remember, the only price of admission is to hit that like button tonight on Liberty and Friends. The panel that we have are some special faces, including a new face, someone who we've had on the channel, but not on Liberty and Friends. I'm talking, of course, about Jarette Petzer, who is the founder and the head of the Move 1 Million group. I have him tonight. We have Nzuzo, Khati, and Koketso Resane, 2/3 of the Manpatria podcast team. And of course, last but not least, Joe Emilio, the host of the Joe Emilio Show. Before I get into any of that, I want to give you a little taste, a little appetizer, if you will, as to what we've been doing here at the BDL Show. We are producing at the moment a special documentary, a special feature on the effects of the lockdown. I want you to get a first-hand view of how, just in case you've been desensitized to it, of just how devastating and real this lockdown has been. And this first episode of the documentary that we're doing will focus on the tourism and hospitality sector, who I can tell you now, my fellow South Africans, have been absolutely decimated by politicians and their decisions to use a lockdown to fight a virus. Now, as I've always said on this show, we recognize COVID-19. We're not anti-vaxxers or any of that nonsense. But what we are saying is the lockdown is not how you fight a pandemic. This lockdown is fighting you and your freedoms and your ability to provide for yourself. But don't take it from me. Let me show you just an appetizer of what the special feature will look like, what that documentary will look like. Over here.
I have to ask you to make even greater sacrifices. The National Coronavirus Command Council has decided to extend the nationwide lockdown.
Now, today marks 500 days since South Africa went into a national lockdown to curb the coronavirus pandemic.
Coming soon on the Big Daddy Liberty Show, a special feature as we do a deep dive on the effects of lockdown on the tourism and hospitality sector. and show you how when politicians close off an economy, ordinary people suffer.
Everything is closing down. Venues are closing down.
We've got families to feed.
I was like, what have I done wrong that I can't even get assistance from the government?
That's the special on effects of lockdown on tourism, only on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Stay tuned.
We've lost everything.
And yeah, there you have it. As you can see, I sort of choke up every time I watch and think about those South Africans who I spoke about, because it's not hyperbole when South Africans say they've lost everything. And it's politicians who have done that to my South Africans. It's politicians who have done that to the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African people who 500 days ago, which is when this lockdown began. Today is day 500 of this asinine lockdown. South Africans who 500 days ago thought of themselves as independent, self-sufficient, providing for themselves, are now seeing themselves become these sort of poor dependents that many never thought they'd ever be, as the enterprising, the innovative, the hardworking. That's who's been punished by this lockdown. Not the politicians, not the political elites, not the wealthy. It has been ordinary South Africans, poor to middle class, who have been absolutely decimated. And it is that voice that we're going to amplify on this show and bring out. So stay tuned. Look forward to that special feature, that special documentary that we'll be producing on the Big Daddy Liberty Show, as we take you inside the lockdown effects on the tourism and hospitality sector. But with that being said, let me not waffle away any further. There's 301 of you watching across the platforms, but the likes are not there, guys. Get my engagement up, guys. Hit that like button right now. There's only 48 likes across the platform. I want to see at least 150, 50% engagement. Hit my likes, people. Hit my likes. It's the only cost of admission on the show. With that being said, speaking about admitting people to the show, let me admit my guests this week. The first I see over here is one part of the trio at the Manpatria podcast I spoke of earlier on, Koketso Resane. There he is on screen. Koketso, good evening and welcome to Liberty and Friends.
Not just a good evening, a great evening. Good to be back. Let's have good conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking about Manpatria, another part of the trio over there is Nzuzo Khati. There he is on screen. Nzuzo, good evening, brother.
Good evening, Sitle, and to all your viewers. I'm happy to be here with my brother Koketso, and promoting the Manpatria brand. And ready for some great conversations. Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. Shout out to you guys, man, at Manpatria. Great content out in that part of the world, including Dumo's new show, which looks at issues through the Austrian economics perspective. So make sure you head over to Manpatria on all of his social media platforms. Another alternative media show in this country, one which I really encourage you to head over to subscribe to, is Joe Emilio, the Joe Emilio Show. There he is. Joe, good evening, brother.
Sorry, it was on mute. Sorry. Hi, guys. It's amateur hour. Shame on me. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Big Daddy Liberty. And, of course, hi to Koketso and Nzuzo. Congratulations to Manpatria for hitting 1,000 subscribers. I got the notification. That's right. Congratulations to you guys. Well deserved. And, go subscribe to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Shout out to Joe Emilio, of course, from the Joe Emilio Show. Please make sure you subscribe to his content. And last but not least, a fella who is really a mover and shaker. And I remember describing him as a doer the last time we spoke. I'm talking, of course, about Jarette Petzer, who's the head of the Move 1 Million Foundation. Jarette, good evening. Welcome to Liberty and Friends.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. How's it going, guys? I hope everyone's doing well.
Excellent, Jarette. Good to see you. Before we even begin, Jarette, you guys had some good news this week. I saw you posted on Twitter. You want to quickly share?
Yeah, man, we got our PBO status, and we managed to get it in record time, which was really great. We had so much information to provide SARS that we managed to get it through in just under 9 months. So it's a big step forward for our organization, and we've also launched the first phase of our subscription services. So that's all happening. It's been a very good week for us.
Excellento, excellento. There you have it. That's Jarette Petzer who's joining us. Pardon me. Yeah, I'm right. Sorry. Jarette Petzer is joining us. I always sort of check myself when I look at the pronunciation of your first name. But Jarette Petzer, I got it right. Joining us tonight, guys. Let's hop straight into it. There is a typing noise. I don't know who that is. Just be mindful, guys, of background noise.
Okay. It's just a crackle.
I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, okay. There's a slight issue, but all right. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, slight issue, but let's get straight into it, guys. There's only 3 headlines I want us to chew on this week, guys, because I think they dominated the news sphere in a very profound way, and there's so many implications behind them. Perhaps top of the issues mountain that we'll traverse tonight is the cabinet reshuffle that we saw by Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the president of this country. Koketso, I'm going to begin with you because I'm just going to do an opening thoughts on it. And there's 2 things I want you to just engage with as you give us those opening thoughts. Number 1, the usefulness of cabinet reshuffles, period. Because this is not the only administration that's done this. Almost all of them in lockstep have done it effectively. But do they actually even yield any real-term results when it's the same party in governance?
Resounding no from me. I've made this example before, this analogy. It's a game of musical chairs. You have the exact same people who are playing this game. And to make things worse, when the music stops, you're supposed to pull a chair out and have people hurry up and sit down, aka service delivery or good performance. But this time around, when the music stops, there's no incentive for them to actually sit down because no chair gets pulled out. In fact, additional chairs get added in. We see how new ministries have now been created. Remember, Cyril Ramaphosa campaigned on a ticket of promising that he'd actually reduce the executive, but this time around, he's actually gone ahead and created a new executive. He's taken state security and I think folded it now under the presidency as well. So long story short, it's the exact same players being recycled through multiple cabinet portfolios. I don't know about you, but I don't envision myself being good at so many things that I can be a minister of transport today, defense tomorrow, water and sanitation the week after that. What else is there? I don't imagine myself being that talented that I can actually do a good job through all of these, but we've seen how certain ministers have definitely gone through multiple portfolios here, and you have to wonder, why don't they actually do something they're good at, So for me, whether they succeed or they fail, it's irrelevant. They're always given the liberty to actually go ahead and fail in yet another portfolio, and the only people who suffer here is you and me, because it is our tax money that is not realizing full use, or let me say efficient use of our taxes.
Absolutely. And it becomes an almost revolving clown world door, if you will. It's sort of like when 50 clowns enter a very small car and you're like, how did that happen? Like, what's going on? What kind of trickery is happening there? Let me come to you, Joe, and then Nzuzo. Insofar as, there are a few, I think Koketso rightly set out the meat of this issue, but there's quite a few potatoes involved in this too. The biggest one in inverted commas, is the move at the finance ministry. This is, of course, Tito Mboweni bowing out to Enoch Godot Ngwana, who is, of course, a chap who is the policy head honcho at the ANC, now entering the finance ministry. Now, before we say anything, just to everybody, this chap is not an idiot. We need to be very careful we don't belittle those who we consider our intellectual opponents. He has a master's degree in economics, but that doesn't absolve him from having been part of the same ANC with the bad policies.
No, absolutely. And I think what people need to remember with this reshuffle is it's just theater, guys. That's all it is. It's just theater. This is an election season that is happening right now. And that is all the ANC is focused on. And I think that's what people need to remember. It doesn't matter if Cyril replaces some of the rot with other rot or what seems to be not so much rotten. The idea here is that the entire barrel is rotten, and people need to remember that. There's this huge PR campaign right now by News 24, and the article came out this morning. I think you saw it, Sikwe. I saw you retweeting it, where they said that, President Ramaphosa said that, the rot is bad, and he knew it went deep, but we cannot blame the ministers for their mistakes, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing immensely here. But in my opinion, the fact that Beketele, and I know we're going to get into him a bit later, but I just want to say the fact that Beketele is not removed at all shows you exactly how much Cyril wants to change the ANC.
Absolutely. Again, Nzuzo, it's a common theme I've been hearing, where it's almost the same flavor. And I purposefully raised the specter that this is not the first time we've seen a reshuffling of a cabinet period. South Africans have seen this act. And one of the things I've often wanted to ask is, as we lose Jarette there, but I'm sure he'll be back. One of the things I've wanted to ask is, hang on. Why is it that when it's Cyril Ramaphosa reshuffling a cabinet, there seems to be a positive sentiment from the media elites in particular, and of course the political elites? But South Africans who have seen the script before, like, yeah, same ANC, same day, same trash.
Yeah, man. Firstly, I just think that the cabinet reshuffle was to take away focus from the last couple of weeks, particularly the looting. Something to have the cameras back onto Cyril and his executive and what they may or may not be doing, which we know is nothing. But yeah, people are in love with Cyril. They think that everything he does, he touches, is going to make a difference to South Africa when it's actually not. He's been in government for up to 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken. Has not really done anything. Has not really affected any change in the economy, affected any change in society. Police is worse now than ever. We saw a couple of weeks. And yeah, it doesn't change. You can bring in, it can be either Jacob or it can be Matamela. You can even bring all types of people from the ANC, but at the end of the day, it's still the ANC. It's still a party that wants to push certain policies and at the same time does not do the work or is incompetent. And also they're just there to eat off the state. Not only have they added a new ministry, they have like up to 6 ministries have 2 deputy ministers. I still don't know what a deputy minister does. I still don't know if those deputy ministers are the right ones that actually should be there. And I'm still here to see like some track record of any of these ministers since being moved. Someone like Stella Ndabeni, I would have expected her to do something in the previous ministry, but she hasn't done anything. Now she's being moved to this ministry in small business, and we think she's going to do something different. Come on. It doesn't really take that much to see that someone is not good at what they do, and you have to get them out, and you have to replace them with someone who's actually better. It's funny how, opposition parties were also putting their hands up to be a ministry. It just shows that, it's all about eating from the state. They don't really care about actually effecting change. It's all about pushing up the fiscal framework in which the government actually works in, eating more of our taxes, increasing our taxes. I know there's just rumors, but they could also increase taxes just to pay off these fat cats, people like Betty Pele and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not really surprising. Cabinet shuffles, still the same party at the end of the day, and that essentially needs to change. That's the fundamental thing.
Jarette, let me come to you because as we're all saying this, there's the I mentioned on a previous show that I was on just now with Ronaldo Gho. Shout out to Ronaldo, by the way. I mentioned the fact that this is the problem with South Africa, is that all of this cabinet reshuffle shenanigans are happening, but no one gets the impression, perhaps, that this will actually improve the quality of life of the ordinary South African, who really is the forgotten individual in all of this. It seemed, if anything, like the reshuffling is more politics. It is a president who's trying to shuffle his way around his friends and not so friendly faces within his own party. What benefit does the ordinary South African derive from this, Jarette?
Yeah, so you just took the words out of my mouth. As we're sitting here and we're discussing things, it's got nothing to do with South Africa. It's got nothing to do with the people on the ground. It's got nothing to do with the South African economy. It's got everything to do with putting in the right people to protect your position. And I think that's the sad reality of where we are in this country. And I think that's what politics really breeds. I mean, show me one political party that puts their nation first. It's always about trying to outdo another political party, or trying to make sure you can outdo those that are trying to come for your position. And I think that's the fundamental flaw with politics. And we can change political parties all we want to, but until we change the political system upon which parties are built, we're going to keep on going around and round in circles. You know, it's very sad to see the situation we're in right now, where the very same people that have held you in power are the ones that are eating plants right now to try and fill their tummies. And I think to myself, you know, how do you sit with a clear conscience as a billionaire, you know, having looted and stolen so much revenue from our country? All of these ministers have got some sort of skeletons in their closet. How do you sit there and know that you've done this to your country? And then it dawns on me, when you're in that position, you're so far removed from the people on the ground, you've forgotten what it's like. You don't know what it's like anymore to suffer. You know, you come down, you're held down from your ivory tower with all your bodyguards and all the police surrounding you, and you go and walking through our townships and through our poorer communities and making all these promises. But then you get back into your BMW and your Mercedes Benz and drive into your mansion on the mountain. You know, I mean, there is no more interest for the people, and it's very sad to see a liberation movement that had so much potential to be so great turn into what it's turned into now. I think it's horrific. I think it's absolutely horrific.
You on mute.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was just saying that's a sentiment that is shared by millions of South Africans who actually saw the ANC as a party of hope. And again, there was a period in time in this country when that actually applied. I mean, what we should never we should also be aware, we should be fearful of rewriting history to benefit our analysis today. There was a period in this country when actually the ANC was getting things right. You could see it even in the numbers. The period, for example, from about 1997 to about, let's call it 2007, where we were seeing, you know, year-on-year growth in some cases. There's 3 consecutive years, in fact, of 5% plus growth. You know, the ANC added 10 million jobs to the economy. For every one shack that was built in the country, 10 formal homes were being built. I mean, I can go down the line. There were incidents where, when they got things right, in other words, when policy was aimed or geared towards being more on the side of markets and allowing people to create the wealth and people to keep the wealth and, of course, create more value, we saw a South Africa that was beginning to grow. But of course, hey, ta-da, the lefties came into the play there and started saying, stuff all of this wonderful policy. How about we have redistributionist policy? But I digress a little bit, guys. But it is part of this conversation to an extent. Because let me go back to you, Koketso and Nzuzo, insofar as the finance minister in particular. You know, he's made a few noises, some initial noises, which are encouraging. I mean, I saw a headline today, if I'm not mistaken, where he basically lambasts the rhetoric that had been simmering up in the mainstream media and the political elites of a universal income grant. And he basically today, I saw a headline saying, hey man, be very careful of building a culture of dependency in a society that actually is as young as ours and should be getting people into productive, gainful employment. Koketso?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I don't trust Mr. Enoch Godongwana. Credentials aside, I simply don't trust the man. This is the same man who, as head of policy at the African National Congress, came up with the brilliant idea of going after yours and mine's pension funds in order to, quote-unquote, fund, or let me say, fund infrastructure projects, aka bail out state-owned entities with the blank check that is not just public pension funds, but also the private ones as well. So firstly, I don't trust him. Secondly, I think if he's berating such an article, you have to ask yourself, what is his mindset here? Because we have a dwindling tax base. We have a dwindling middle class as well. Per capita income has been dwindling as well, steadily so as well. So this is nothing new. This has actually been going on, dating back probably 10, 15 years here. So I have to ask, what is his mindset if he's not willing to actually take some of those criticisms as a representative of the ruling party? With a shrinking tax base, when you hear things like universal basic income, for me, it really just sounds like the perpetuation of a welfare state, a state where there's a hell of a lot of people who are dependent on the state for some form of grant for them to live some form of meaningful life. And that's a problem because you can't, as a single taxpayer, be funding the lifestyle of 4 or 5 other people if you look at the numerical ratios here. I mean, I believe last time I checked, there's about just under 8 million people who are actually eligible for pay-as-you-earn tax. Out of that under 8 million, only about 5 million or so actually pay pay-as-you-earn tax as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And this is in a country of 59 million people. We've got 20 million plus who are receiving some form of grant already, and the number keeps growing. And yet we have a finance minister who doesn't want to take the criticism that we just don't have enough taxpayers to fit your social promises and to for you to actually deliver on your election promises year in, year out. So yeah, I don't trust this man if he's not willing to look at the stats and actually take the criticism from economical experts, industry experts, be it your ratings agencies, be it even the private sector, who again, private sectors are taxpayer themselves. If he's not willing to take that criticism, I have to ask, where is he getting his primary advice? Who does he have as an advisory who's actually going to tell them the hard truth for him to make the hard decisions? I don't see any of that, but again, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt this time around because it's early days. Maybe he'd shock me, and I'd like for him to actually shock me so I can swallow my words.
Absolutely. Nzuzo, that's almost the point here, isn't it? We want to be shocked by what is seemingly a very history repeating itself with this finance minister in particular. And again, I was being nice to him. I mean, Koketso is quite right to point out this is the same chap who is advocating for a policy of prescribed assets, that is confiscating pensions, the state confiscating pensions in order to fund state largesse and projects in the name of infrastructure development. But he, as I said, he only made right noises when it came to UBI, the notion of the universal basic income, where he dispelled the notion and said, look, it's effectively just a non-starter in a country where already there's a lot of state dependency on welfare. But let me move to another controversial area here. And we'll move on just now, fellas, because really, as we all concluded at the beginning, this is, to be honest, the cabinet reshuffle is dribbling and distracting. It's absolutely useless. But there is one more issue that I want to quickly raise here as I quickly jog my memory. Yes. The single largest area of concern for me when it came to this cabinet reshuffle is actually, and it was a simple byline by the president because he didn't want you to focus on it. The appropriating of the state security agency under the presidency is a very worrying concern. If you look at the record of history across liberation movements in Africa who gained independence, it is when the security apparatus is almost nestled under the egg, if you will, of a single leader. In this case, the presidency. There are worrying signs and questions of despotism that came out in this. Are we losing Nzuzo here? Oh no. Okay, we've lost Nzuzo for a moment, but let me come to you, perhaps, Joe, with this one. Very worrying signs when you see the president saying, oh, actually, you know what? The country spooks, spies and operatives, shadow operatives should actually report to my office directly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this whole thing is just a sham and a joke. And once again, like Cyril, I'm starting to believe Cyril is panicking, to be honest. I think he's running out of moves to make. I think he's grasping at straws, him and the ANC. And again, like you said earlier, this cabinet reshuffle is dribble. It's a fallacy. It's a farce. It's a theater act. There's really nothing valuable with this cabinet reshuffle.
Absolutely. Jarette, I'm going to come back to you and then Koketso, and then we must move on to another issue. But for me, again, I must drill in onto this issue because maybe people don't understand the significance of it, and I get it, right? But in a state where we've already seen what the heavy hand of a security state can look like. I mean, let me jog your memory back to level 5 lockdown, where soldiers took to the streets at the command and behest of that supposed commander-in-chief president. And you saw security forces openly and nakedly abuse South Africans, making them do squats, ripping open, pardon me, bags with groceries in it, to interrogate people on the streets as to why they went out to buy groceries and the like, and even people being killed. Jarette, it's very worrying when that president then says, no, actually, the state security apparatus should be in my office.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I think we've got to take a couple of things into consideration here. One of them being the absolute mess that was state security just a short while ago with looting. You know, it looks like this thing caught everybody unaware. And it looks like there was a lot of infrastructure, a lot of preparation that had already taken place, and there was in spite of the fact that I think the public actually managed to quell the flames quite quickly. There is a clear problem with security, state security, and information. I mean, there's obviously a clear issue here, and I'd imagine that's why Ramaphosa's taken that position. Is it the right position? Well, you know, time is going to tell for us, and of course we should be concerned about the state of things. But I'm far more concerned about the fact that we had a primary school teacher in control of our military. You know, I'm far more concerned that we've had these people that are completely incompetent, that are sitting in positions that are controlling South Africa's death machine. I don't think that's the best move for our country, and I think there was a little bit of reactionary steps taken from our president. And I'm hoping for the best. You know, I really am. I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa has definitely made some bad moves, but certainly, you know, when we look at things, where are our options? You know, where do we go from here with the people that we have controlling our state resources? I mean, what does it look like? What does the alternative look like at this current stage? It's a hell of a concern.
And maybe let me throw that to Nzuzo. Insofar as, you know, Nzuzo, the question I was posing to you earlier on, when we began this particular question, for me, the biggest concern out of the reshuffle was the appropriating of state security agency under the presidency. And I say this because, again, it's almost textbook, guys. It is almost textbook everything that's happened in other failed African states where threatened political parties, liberation movements, and governments, and threatened leaders in particular, appropriate state security agencies to become their almost bulwark, their protectors. Now, let me take it one step further. There's obviously also the fear, given as Jarette rightly pointed out, after the looting and the violence of the 2 weeks ago, and the failure of the security agencies, that maybe it might be best to place it in the presidency. But I would venture that the actual solution isn't centralizing power, but actually appointing competent people at the heads of these institutions that can deliver.
Yes, and also decentralizing power, I think. Taking it back to the community, to police station commanders, people that are aware of their situation on the ground, the circumstances, and the type of resources that they require. But also, I think that by him centralizing everything, he misses the point of, he misses it completely in that many of the police officers are not trained. Many of the police, or some of the police officers are not also are criminals themselves. And all he's doing, as you said, he's using a bulwark just to intimidate citizens of South Africa. He's not necessarily making any change. And it's worrying when you put something of such magnitude under one person. You know, it's the police is needed across the country. You know, from Cape Town up until Tzaneen, you know, in Limpopo. So, and it needs to be decentralized. The situation that you see in Tzaneen is different to the situation that you see in Cape Town, in Langa. In all those times, you need to have people on the ground who understand the situation. And if I'm not mistaken, if he does centralize state security, does that also mean that he also centralize in the defense force, if I'm not mistaken? Or maybe I'm incorrect in that, and that's a separate ministry on its own. But maybe you can clear that for me.
Yeah, just very briefly, State Security Agency is specifically South Africa's spooks and spies. What used to be in the past, it actually used to be two distinct agencies, believe it or not, in the past. The National Intelligence Agency and the State Security lot. You know, one dealt with foreign threats to South Africa and the other dealt with internal intelligence threats to the country. And they were made into one agency called the State Security Agency, and then obviously appropriated to become ever more politicized, especially under the Zuma years. Let's not forget, guys, that Zuma is the same guy who at some point there was a report came out that said that the very bodyguards around him were not from the South African Police Service, who has the responsibility for this, but he actually drew specifically guys from the State Security Agency to form his little phalanx of bodyguards. Again, there's always been a politicizing of this agency, and for me, it seemed as though we're heading more in that direction when the president then appropriates it and puts it in his presidency, as opposed to doing what I'm suggesting. Keep it a separate, go back to what it used to be like, and appoint skilled, competent people to head up what is a critical agency, indeed, especially when you saw how a lack of intelligence saw the country descend into chaos for a solid couple of days. Guys, we must move on. We must move on. And before we do, welcome to it if you're watching this episode of Liberty and Friends. We've just gone just beyond the 30-minute mark, nearly 40 minutes. This is Liberty and Friends. I'm in conversation with Jarette, Petzer, the leader and really founder of the Move 1 Million movement, and Koketso Resane, who is the one-third of the Manpatria podcast. Why am I stuttering so much? Nzuzo Khati from the same podcast, and of course, Joe Emilio of the Joe Emilio Show. With that being said, shout out to you, Shahid Davids, for the, hey man, very generous super chat, 350 Rand, with a short message there saying, thanks for all the good work, BDL, small donation for the admin. Thank you, my brother. Super appreciate that. Guys, let's move on, because, you know, the other major thing that happened this week, and I'm debating whether I should maybe put it as the last issue. Let me leave that to the last one. And let's go, maybe linked, therefore, to the cabinet reshuffle is a particular asshat that I like to talk about. And I'm sure we all know exactly who I'm talking about when I say that, but if you are wondering, I'm talking about the police minister, A1 Begi, the asshat, as we've come to name him on the show. How did he survive a cabinet reshuffle? Is that not just the most laughable thing ever? And I focus in on Ubegi because this week, a spectacular headline. I can only call it spectacular headline. Here's a quote from the asshat himself. Ubegi has the nerve. And by the way, I'll get into the potatoes of this. This is just the meat of it for now. Petzer has the nerve in an interview with the Times, specifically Sunday Times, to say, well, you know, obviously they're asking him about a whole bunch of things. And there is a rift growing right now between Petzer, the Minister of Police, and a chap named Ukeka Sithole, who's the National Police Commissioner. Ukeka Sithole, of course, also made the news this week, where the appeals court basically confirmed a lower court's finding to say that this guy was in breach of his duty, and his job as the head of the police is actually untenable. This related to an issue of grabbers. Hang on, let me just check my notes properly here. Give me a second, folks, so that it makes sense as I talk about what I'm talking about. So effectively, it was just before the week before South Africa was engulfed in the flames of the looting, where the Supreme Court of Appeals in Bloemfontein dismissed the South African National Police Service's National Commissioner, Ukeka Sithole's appeal against a High Court judgment that he and two other members of top police management had breached their duties. And it was a judgment not made to the public necessarily, or it wasn't to public, but it effectively found, that the man leading the police was found to be politically deeply compromised. Sorry, guys, pardon me. I wrote my notes back to front. That's why I'm a little... Sorry, the note I wanted to read was this one. The judgment itself, because I need to give you the judgment just in case you missed it. In a scathing judgment handed down on initially the 13th of February this year, Judge Norman Davis in the Gauteng High Court found that Sithole and his two deputies, it's one Francina Vuma and Leboana Tsumani, had placed the interests of the governing party, the ANC, ahead of those of the country. The National Commissioner will have a hard time convincing anyone now that he's fit to lead the SAPS, for the benefit of all South Africans. Sithole, if you remember, was appointed by Jacob Zuma a month before the Nazareth conference. But let's fast forward then, where the Supreme Court then says, yeah, we agree with this judgment. This chap has no place and no business leading an institution like the South African Police Services. Now you have two individuals at the top echelons of SAPS leadership who have had court findings against them, very adverse findings, by the way. The asshat, who's now the minister and used to be the police commissioner, and of course the current police commissioner. Goodness me, is this job not just cursed by the ANC's political meddling, Nzuzo? You're muted, brother.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yes, it's a total mess at the police services. Very clear, and probably we will speak about it later. But saying it's obviously a man that's uninformed, doesn't know what to do, and is just toying around with these nice hats on his head, trying to act like he's doing something when he's actually not. He's talked about the fact that stats are a tool of propaganda for those that don't want to invest in South Africa. He's at war with his own commissioner, and he's unable to understand how important it is. It's just what he also did in Phoenix as well. You know what he did when he went to Phoenix, telling us that, and Koketso will probably have more information about this, but telling us that he was saying that Apara, essentially a homeless person, told him that there's some war going on in Phoenix and he has to come. He didn't even, it sounds as like he's just there for show. He didn't actually put any type of input or assistance to the people of Phoenix, nor has he done anything for South Africa as a whole. I'm not surprised that him and his commissioner at loggerheads, he's the same guy that didn't want to cancel the corrupt contract between FDA, and yet Khati wanted to, because it's just not enough money, that they don't have enough money to do so. But yeah, it's a badly run department, and it needs to be fixed immediately.
Let me go beyond the headlines, guys. And Koketso, I'll bring you in, and then Jarette, and then Joe. What I'm really angling at here, and before I actually get to any of that, guys, viewers, I'm watching my engagement. Hit the like button, guys. Hit the like button. It's your only price of admission. Hit that like button, please, right now. It helps get the stream out. Koketso, let me come to you. I want to deep dive on this issue, because I've said this before, and some people got really upset when I said it. And I said, if you really look at the South African police services, there is no way in hell you can say that the chap who wakes up on a day-to-day basis, dons a bulletproof vest, puts on his service pistol, and drives a clearly branded vehicle in order to go into some of the most dangerous parts of the country. You can't say that chap isn't committed to his job and his and us as South Africans. The real problem we face in this country is who leads that chap, both at a management level at SAPS and at a political level, at the level of an asshat. We must make that distinction. And of course we know there are some criminals in SAPS and blah, blah, blah. We know this. But the overwhelming majority of police officers are people who are deeply committed to bringing law and order and safety for our families. It is that chap, therefore, Koketso, who then watches a news headline that the guy who leads the institution he works on at a management level, Sithole, and the guy who leads it at a political level are not only at loggerheads, but are both found to be wanting in the positions. The level of being demoralized, therefore. Speak to me about that. And number two, we'll get to Phoenix just now. That chap then, how do we expect that same police officer to be 100% devoted to the task at hand?
Yeah, I like what you said there, that there's no way in hell that individual is not doing it out of a sense of duty or devotion. I have to agree with you there. But maybe to highlight one of the big problems with what goes on there, imagine now being a hardworking, long service member of the South African Police Service and being overlooked for certain managerial, or let me say senior/top positions within the police. imagine being overlooked because you aren't as politically connected as some of the leadership is. And we've, like mentioned before, we've seen what happens when you actually appoint people based on their political allegiance. Firstly, it says that they're likely not the most qualified or the most, let me say, the most skilled in order to fulfill such a role, a serious role. Because remember, this isn't just police. When we talk about police, we're actually talking about yours and mine's protection here. So yeah, imagine being that guy and being overlooked because you're not politically connected enough. That's actually very concerning, even for a normal citizen. But now, over and above that, we know that there's two types of policemen. You know, there's the one who actually wants to do his job, and then there's the one who's actually there because, quote unquote, they had nothing better to do. Now, if you're a policeman, policewoman who actually wants to go out there and do your job and maybe do patrols and the likes, and you're prevented from doing so because of maybe fiscal challenge in the department or a lack of allocated resources, which can easily translate into poor leadership or bad management, that's really not on you. And I feel for that man and woman because it does demoralize. And when the time comes for you to actually stand in front of me, who's just a normal citizen who is going to rely on you, you no longer have that drive, number one. Number two, even if you have the drive, you typically are under-resourced to actually fulfill your mandate. Everyone suffers because of this. And if you look at the political leadership even now, it even dates back to, never mind Begicele, even his predecessors were quite questionable. If you think of someone like, I believe at some point, even Fikile Mbalula was in the department in some senior role there. Before then, we had Natim Tetwa. So again, they've just created this revolving door, like you earlier mentioned, of people who aren't good at that portfolio, do not know what they're doing. They just sit there in the job to really enjoy the title and wear a uniform adorned with all sorts of badges and medals and stars and the likes, but they really don't take the job seriously. And to stamp the fact that they don't take this job seriously, we see that their replacements aren't people who are any better even for that. And maybe just a last point is to bring up that reminder that remember when Begicele was a commissioner himself at some point, perhaps he's got some delusion of grandeur where he sees himself as both judge and executioner, or case this time around as both the political figurehead and the actual rank and file officer. Maybe he's got a delusion of grandeur there, and maybe that's what can explain some of this behavior that we're seeing. I don't think that at this point in time he knows what the difference is between being a minister and being a national commissioner, because he wants his finger in every pie. But even if he was to go with that, let's not forget his dishonorable discharge from the time when he was a national commissioner. He was released from his duties over, just some damning stuff that he did as a national commissioner. It's a worry that he's actually found his way into
the property. Sorry,
a corruption scandal. Yeah. A corruption scandal over the premises. Yeah, so it's a worry there that he still somehow came back from the grave beyond that scandal and finds himself now in the electional executive in charge of the same police department, where as national commissioner he was actually at the forefront of corruption. It's quite worrying. So yeah, I don't have confidence in the police either, and I really feel for the rank and file officer who's really trying to do their job and protect me and themselves and my family and their family as well.
And Joe, let me come to you before I come to Jarette, because there's a, what we often do as South Africans, and this is our folly as South Africans, we often judge these politicians by their intentions and not the outcomes of their leadership and policy and, of course, governance. Let me be precise and specific. If you're to judge a one-ass-hat Begicele, you might like the guy if you're to judge him by his intentions, because he talks tough, he's always there in his gangster suit and his hat. He'll push around people at swanky Cape Town beaches, or manhandle people for the cameras in Kwamash, as he did when there's a young man, about a 17-year-old who didn't have a mask, and he manhandled him and said, "Yeah, arrest this one." And he was about to be thrown into a police van until some Samaritan street mama who was selling was like, "Hey man, firstly, stop that crap. Here's a mask. Let him go." If you judge him by his intentions, he talks tough. But the outcomes are simply different. The forensic backlog, for example, if you look at actual hardcore things that are core policing function, John, I want you to speak to us about these. He just simply fails.
I've got to, you know what? Maybe you see it that way, Sikhi, but I got to disagree with you. In my view, he does not look tough. He does not look intelligent, and he sure as hell does not look like he knows what he's doing. He's all for show. They kind of just put him in certain places so that people can kind of calm down, that it looks like our police minister is doing something. But every step of the way, he's made every single wrong decision. I mean, even during these riots, he claims that they found bullets that, by the way, the police were supposed to be protecting before the riots started to happen. It was supposed to be under their protection. Where were they? He fails to mention that. And the DNA backlog, which for me is one of the most important things, and I've been following this story for a while now since it first came up. The backlog in June of 2020, that's when it started. That's when the backlog started. At the end of 2020 was at 172,000 cases, DNA cases. That's just the cases. That's without the evidence that has been misplaced. No one knows where it is. No one knows what's happening with that evidence. Cases, 172. Right now, before I get to that, this whole thing happened. This whole thing blew up. Andrew Whitfield was attacking Tele, saying he's not doing his job. There's this whole thing, police commission in Parliament, and Tele was saying, no, we're gonna fix it. We've got plans. We've got a new system. It's gonna be okay. That was in April of this year, and at that point, it had increased to over 200,000 cases. Now, at the beginning of this month, it's at over 300,000 cases, DNA cases that are backlogged. This is any murder, any rape, anything to do with DNA. These are South Africans that cannot get justice because that man does not know what the hell he's doing. And I'm sorry, I know I'm getting a bit emotional, but this is what I'm saying. When Cyril doesn't replace him, when Cyril doesn't say, hey, Tele, you're fired, you don't know what the hell you're doing, that shows you how much Cyril, Tele, and the entire ANC give a damn about the South African people. They don't. And anybody who thinks they do, anybody who thinks they know what they're doing, you're fooling yourselves, you're naive, and you need to wake up.
Absolutely. That is the A to Z of that issue. Goodness me, if I was Forrest Gump, I'll be like, that's all I have to say about that. But that's absolutely true. Jarette, I'll give you the final word on this issue before we move on, because the angle Joe brought out in particular is the one I wanted, which is if you are an ordinary South African, and this is why the first issue and this one are linked. If you're a South African, you are on the receiving end of the trash that is firstly the reshuffle that keeps the nonsense, and it doesn't even replace those who are replaced with quality people, and then go down the line to those who are kept, like the one ass at Behitele. There is a high personal cost that we pay as South Africans when a key institution like SAPS is not fixed and actually is facing backlogs not only in the forensic labs, rape cases, murders, and whatever the case may be, which may see hardened criminals be let go because of this, but there's also a failure in the firearms registry register, if anything, which also is seeing a backlog, and we can't even defend ourselves, therefore, as South Africans who are applying for gun licenses. And also, at the ordinary police station level, I'm talking about police stations, Cape Town Central Police Station here, where they didn't even have at one point, I don't know if it's fixed or it's still the case, enough radios to communicate and keep in touch. And let me go one step further, Jarette. Incidents recently of those same police officers being robbed by the hardened criminals that I speak of who are not being locked away, of the guns and the like, as happened in the Northern Cape. Jarette?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, it's an incredibly sad situation we find ourselves in, because the police are either scared of the criminals or they are empowering the criminals, and not all of them, because I've got a lot of friends that are in SAPS, and they do incredible work, and we've tried to work with SAPS for some time now. But the reality is that the law-abiding citizens are the only ones that the police are able to manage. Just as a point of reference, during the looting in Port Edward. One of my members contacted me and said, please, can you help us? SAPS have just sent a message out saying they've run out of bullets. So it was the general public that had come to the rescue and the security companies that had come to the rescue because SAPS had no bullets. Now, why don't they have any bullets in their guns? Because they've decided to put 10 billion into SAA and defund our police. So what these guys have done is actually that they're hamstringing our police. They're putting their hands behind their back. They're taking out all the critical thinking and then they turn around to us and say, by the way, we're taking off firearms as well, the public. You know, we're sitting in a situation that is absolutely untenable. And for us to continue on this trajectory with people that are holding these key positions in our country, and we're really getting to the point of life or death now, because this is what it is. This is life or death. And we've got people that don't know what they're doing, that are more obsessed with making sure that they've got really nice hats and really nice cars, again, going back to the previous conversation that I had, than worrying about the people that are in desperate need. And who's the ones that are in desperate need? Not the guys that can afford bodyguards and the guys that can afford private security companies. No, it's the men and the women and the children that are walking around in our communities that have got no street lights because the service deliveries failed. They've got nothing in the way to protect themselves, and even the police are refusing to go into these areas because the gangs have become so powerful. You know, there's more arms and ammunition in the hands of the baddies than there are with our own policing service, and that falls squarely on the shoulders of Bekitseli. And you know, I mean, it's a dog show.
Absolutely, guys. I must move us on. In fact, we've hit the just about 9 p.m. mark, which means we're in the last 30 minutes of the show. You're watching Liberty and Friends in conversation with Koketso, Resane, and Nzuzo Khati from the Manpatria podcast. Joe Emilio of the Joe Emilio Show, and of course, Jarette Petzer from Move 1 Million. Shout out to you guys for even joining us. We're in the last 30 minutes as we move on to an issue that really dominated my thinking for the week, and that was the anti-minorities inflammatory rhetoric that we're seeing in the country, particularly the anti-Indian sentiment that we saw from the EFF and the ANC, where Indians in Phoenix were used this week as the punching bag of these race grifting and race baiting politicians. So we'll tackle that in a few minutes. Before we move into that, guys, I'm seeing the numbers have gone up, but they aren't where they should be. Hit that like button, please. Hit that like button. Do it now. It is the only price of admission to Liberty and Friends. Hit that like button. It helps push the show out to a broader audience. Hit that like button, please. And I hope you enjoy this show. As we move on to that last issue that I speak of, I've got some file footage that I want to play to this regard, so that you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about just how inflamed the language was around this, and how Indians were scapegoated this week and really in the past 2 weeks by both the ANC, the EFF, and the body of leftist activists, the leftist activists who trade on race. This is a one douchebag named Jackie Shandu, who led a coalition of various civic organizations and activists in Durban in a protest against Indians in Durban and Phoenix. And of course, using the notion of the Phoenix massacre, in inverted commas, as cover for their racism. Just listen to what he had to say about Indians in Phoenix and other areas.
One sector! One bullet! One bullet! One sector! One Indian! One bullet! One Indian! One bullet! One bullet! One Indian! March! March! Thank you very much. Comrades. Thank you very much.
Again, you could hear it for yourself. And what made it worse is the cackling and the laughter in the background as he literally incites violence and hate against Indian South Africans. But again, don't think for a moment that this was isolated to a few radicals here and there in fringe NGOs or civic organizations. Leaders, from the governing party in this country, aside from the EFF, we'll get to the EFF because they're who I want us to zoom into, but leaders from the ANC marched through the community or into Phoenix, specifically at the police station, and at the mortuary there. And then, as they ordinarily do, with loud hailers, started spewing anti-Indian rhetoric. It's all in Zulu, so I'll translate briefly at the beginning, but here's a lady who I'm going to play who basically says, number one, let's not fool ourselves. This is what she says. Into trying to have the kumbaya, let's get together as racist rhetoric. We all know who the real problem here is. And she points to Indians and then goes one step further to say, even the institutions of... Okay, I'm not sure what just happened, but everything just got rearranged. All right, welcome back, everybody. But even the institutions of government, she says, are captured because it is Indians who benefit from all the mega tenders. This is an ANC prominent politician. She said this in Zulu.
Racism to both sides. uhulumeni waKwaZulu Natal, ngiyachallenge uhulumeni walapha eThekwini ukuthi ukusitshengise nje ukuthi laphana kuma biggest projects abo obani ababenefitayo. Ngoba sinenkolelo enkulu ukuthi ezomnotho zala KwaZulu Natal nezomnotho zalapha eThekwini region iphethwe abantu bomdabu wasemzini. Umuntu omnyama ubonakala ekulungela ukuba iPWP, akabonakala elungela ukuthi anikeze ibhizinisi. Amabhizinisi onke anikeza abantu bomdabu wasendiya. Sizohlala kanjani-ke singalwi? Sizohlala kanjani-ke singalwi, comrade?
Sorry, folks. I had to play that clip out and let it play out so that you could hear exactly what I said. Those who can't speak Zulu, but I did translate at the beginning of this. Again, just to reiterate what she was saying, basically, let's not try and gloss over issues as she paints it and create a sense of kumbaya, a racial kumbaya. Indians are the problem. Indians killed blacks, her words. She then goes on to say that it goes even worse. All the major projects, I said tenders initially, she says major projects in the KZN and Durban go to people who come from India. That's actually how she even says it. She others Indian South Africans in that community by calling them like almost India is the word she uses. Indian immigrants is effectively, if I were to give it an English translation, and goes even further to suggest that all economic development is centralized in Indian hands. This woman is not only race baiting dangerously, but also positing that it is by virtue of them being Indian South Africans that they were killing blacks in an almost wanton and discriminatory way. It is insightful language, raising the racial tension, which then brings us, guys, in the panel, Nzuzo, you're off screen, let me bring you back on, which therefore brings us, guys, and I'll begin with you, Nzuzo, to the EFF, who instead of, well, no, let me not say that, because they've never been the sort of people who calm things, so let me not even add that as a proviso to the sentence. But the EFF, almost proving that they are a psyop of the ANC, went to Phoenix themselves looking for their pound of flesh, the media whores that they are, then decided to go to Phoenix and say, well, you know what, let's continue that rhetoric and basically paint Indians as being the people who almost had a bloodlust for black lives and were killing black people because they're black. And it's a function of them being Indians that they did this. That racial tension, Nzuzo, palpable, dangerous, and really led by the political elites.
It was just bad, especially from the EFF side.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Nzuzo might be having a few technical difficulties. Nzuzo, maybe hop out of the the feed and come back in. Let me throw it to Koketso perhaps. Koketso, a racial tension that really is being driven by a political elite.
Yeah, can you maybe confirm if she's actually part of the African
Koketso,
National Congress in some way or form?
Well, Big Daddy, we can hear him. We can hear him.
Joe, I can't hear you either. Right? There's something
It's
wrong
you.
with the feed. Or is it
It's
me?
you. Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
Because
how
I
is it
can
me?
hear
Let's
him.
see, let's see.
I can hear him. I can hear him.
Okay, just a moment, guys. Let me quickly troubleshoot.
Someone comment in the comment section saying that you guys can hear him. Can you guys hear him? Comment in the comment section. Let Sikhle know that you guys can hear us and Sikhle. There we go. So Sikhle just needs to sort it out on his side, and he can't hear his guests for some reason.
All right.
What about now?
Folks?
Yeah?
I don't know if you can hear me now.
We can hear you. We
Is there
can
no
hear
feedback?
you. No feedback.
Okay, perfect. All right. For some reason, it transferred the sound to the laptop. All right, then yes. In that case,
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let me go back to that question, please. The political elites who are leading this racial incitement.
Yeah, my first question was that, can you confirm if that lady was part of the ANC structure or provincial structure in any way or form, or we're not sure of that?
Yeah, she is I forget what she is, but she does hold office in the ANC in that part of the world.
Oh, okay. So I think maybe from my perspective, three things. The first one is that, number one, probably what stands out for me is, of course, the racism aspect is there. They're always looking for some form of scapegoat, and we know that racism is always, the preferred option in our country for a number of various reasons. But with that said, the first point is, notice how she's not actually willing to attend to the actual issue here. There's no talk about what led to the situation which led to what happened in Phoenix. She's ignoring that outright, and she's instead choosing to apply a microscope on the unfortunate events that happened after the fact. So that's the first thing. The second thing that stands out to me here is that she's referring to the service delivery or / economic prospect of the region as being inextricably linked to that of the Indian community. For me, that tells me that she's actually seeing delivering of service or delivering on a municipal mandate as some form of economic gain for those who deliver the service. So again, for me it highlights the mindset of a lot of these cadres, if I can put it like that, in that they don't see a government contract as a means to serve their community or give back to the community or render a service. They see it as a way of getting rich, and she's just highlighting the fact that others are getting rich and she's not, and the others that are getting rich, in her view, happen to be people of Indian heritage. Then again, the third thing here is we have a South African Human Rights Commission, which was set up as a Chapter 9 institution to avoid or to punish exactly this sort of behavior. We criminalize hate speech, but the SAHRC is supposed to really operate just under the radar of what we consider hate speech as a crime. And they're quick to give others a fine, be it offensive adverts about hair, be it statements from the random racist from all parts of the country who happen to have fair skin. The SAHRC is meant to actually punish this sort of behavior, if I can put it like that. But she can outright on a megaphone to a large gathering in her party regalia come out and actually spew hate speech, knowing that there's actually no consequences. So those are three things that stand out for me, and all three will remain unaddressed either by her superiors inside of the party, but even worse, society has really become numb to the fact that this is exactly the kind of rhetoric that prevents us from moving forward, and especially keeps the poor exactly where they are, if not worse.
Absolutely spot on. Sorry, it's such an issue that hits personally for me as someone who grew up in Durban. Some of my best connections, I don't even say friends, my connections were Indians. I have family who live in Phoenix, by the way. So when I quickly spotted the grifting by the politicians to try and raise the temperature, I had a personal stake in this. I have family in Phoenix. Nzuzo, let me come to you. The EFF then descend on Phoenix, and almost instantly, like clockwork, when I know Nzuzo, they marched through the streets of Phoenix, and there's a video I forgot to clip it, where there were some Indian kids on a balcony in their private property watching the procession of EFF. EFF members then say, yeah, Ewan, and then start throwing stones at those kids purely because they were Indians watching them, and supposedly it is the Indians who are racist according to the EFF.
Yeah, man, that's embarrassing to say the least. To actually see someone, it's just lunatic as well, you know. And how does anyone have any type of faith in South Africa when you can see people throwing stones at other people for the color of their skin? It's really, it's not something that you want to see in South Africa. It's not something that you ever want to see amongst human beings, no matter what skin color they are. And for someone, and he said it right there, you know, it's just to inflame racial tension. It's just to bring tension amongst other races, not necessary to build races. They don't care about the Rainbow Nation. Not to say that, you know, it's a project that I'm really invested in, but nonetheless, it's obviously there. They're obviously there to inflame, and that's what the EFF does. That's all they've been doing. It's either protest, be it violent, or, you know, express racial hatred towards others. But it's never to build. It's never to bring value to the conversation, never to bring value to South Africans. It's just for them to obviously get the spotlight, as always. I mean, they even announced it prior that they're going to go there to show those Indians who they are, who the EFF are. So it's just it's scary to have to even. I don't understand why people support this party. I don't understand why people like their leader. It's just it's not the type of person or type of role model you ever want in your life. And so yeah, that's just the market that is the political sphere in South Africa. You have people that are really trying to help South Africans, but then you just have these people that stick out like a sore thumb, but yet they don't offer anything else but pain. And it's like going through a constant divorce. Not to be obviously not to share on people that are going through a divorce, but it's like there's no peace. There's no, for them. It's always I want this. I'm always gonna get this. I'm entitled, and you better get me what I want, or else I'm gonna just start protesting in front of your doors, and that's what they like doing.
And Jarette, I must come to you therefore, because you know I'm sure in your movement, and I'm the way I'm even butchering this question up, it's self-evident. I know Move 1 Million is made of Black, white, Indian, and colored South Africans. Your first impressions when you saw the politicians begin to scapegoat Indians?
If you look at the last year in South Africa, this has been an ongoing thing. There's a continuous race baiting by these political parties, and I think they must be getting incredibly frustrated now because South Africa refuses to budge. South Africa just does not want to budge. You know, the moment that these guys try and spark this racial tension between us, yes, they do have a little bit of support. They'll have a few guys standing around a bucky. The EFF gets all their paid supporters to jump onto a bus and come join them. But the reality is that South Africa is not interested in your nonsense. We are not a racially divided country. We have got challenges like many other countries in the world. But I think we made a very clear statement. I think South Africa made a very clear statement a couple of weeks ago. We are not going to be moved by this nonsense. And I think Nzuzo touched on a very good thing. You know, he doesn't know how people can support these parties anymore. Well, let's remember, guys, they're not being supported anymore. The numbers are dropping daily. They're dwindling. And this is desperation from these guys. They're all seeking to be relevant. They're all seeking to have to find some way to be supported. And they're trying to use race baiting and hatred as a vehicle to do that in. And I'm sorry, we've been through too much as a nation to get pulled into this nonsense. The only time you're going to really see South Africa step up is when you have issues like we've had. And what happens? The communities, the CPF forums, everybody comes together. So you can try to divide us as much as you want to based on the color of our skin. We're not going to budge. We're not interested in that nonsense. And I think that is the truth of South Africa. And we've seen it clearly. It's just been tested, and that just came to the fore. That's my view on this thing.
Absolutely. And you had a situation where when the chips were down, South Africans literally banded together. And it had no racial tinge to it, pardon me. But you could almost see the politicians find that frightful and want to then reassert that no, we're divided by race. We're divided by race. Look at those evil Indians. Look at the evil whites. We blacks are victims. We're poor. Blah blah blah. But here's where it gets tricky, guys, and this is where we'll end it off. And I made this point in my last vlog. It is, if you want to play the race blame game, consider this. 330 South Africans died at the hands of, or murdered during the looting, the public violence in the name of black politicians, Jacob Zuma in particular. Where is the outrage? Where is the outrage from the EFF and the ANC to say, look at how that black politician caused the death of black lives? Because by the government's own accounts, those who died in that period of public violence and looting were black. Yet here you now have those same politicians say, no, the problem is actually Indians. They are the killers because 30 people died in Phoenix. And by the way, there must be justice for those 30 people, and the loudest voice in the room there must be SAPS, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the courts. I've always said this, there must be justice, because there are cases where things were mad there and people lost their lives unjustly. The law must take its course. But what I find the hypocrisy of often the racial, everything is racist, everything is racial guys, often on the left, is that they said nothing about the cause of that public violence, the looting, and how those black individuals, black politicians behind it that killed black lives. Where's the outrage there? If you're going to play the race game. And again, I feel uncomfortable even saying this, but I'm playing their game for a moment. Koketso and then Joe.
Yeah, we've actually seen this. This is, or let me rather say, this is simply history repeating itself. And this happens everywhere in the world. Those on the left are very good. They've become very adept at actually shifting the goalposts, if I can put it like that. The real issues are never addressed. It's like if we talk about poverty, for example, they don't want to talk about how unemployment causes poverty and bad policy causes unemployment, even before that. They would rather shift the goalpost using something like a racism at the forefront instead of actually addressing the simple facts, So in this instance, exactly what you mentioned about how all of this was done supposedly in the name of a black politician, but no one is actually, well, no one on the left, that is, and this includes most of our mainstream media, of course. No one is actually bringing up the fact that the man himself or his representative or his very talkative foundation has not come out and actually said that they condone this sort of behavior. They're actually doing the opposite and blaming other forces for effectively what they've been calling people to do. And we even see this in supposed presidential hopefuls who are actually saying that, all of this is done, all of what has happened is actually happening because of reasons that have nothing to do with people's dire situations. So again, it's very sad that we're in this situation, but it's very important for those who actually can see the truth to keep saying it, because let's be honest, we might have a small voice, but if we take our voice away, there's actually no resistance. And this becomes a status quo, not just now, but in the years to come going forward.
Absolutely. Joe?
Yeah, so this whole Phoenix thing and EFF and all that, people seem to forget where this all started. This started, like you said, particularly with the riots and these looters are coming into they were actually going into Indian houses. They were trying to rob Indians or loot the houses. And that's where it kind of started. And we saw this happening. And then the Indians fought back and they were trying to protect their community. They boarded up the community. And then they were called racist because they were trying to protect their community by just having a bit of a border around their community, checking in people coming in and out. That's all they were doing. They're protecting because, again, the SAPS army were failing. They weren't doing anything. And what do you expect the people to do? Just sit there and be like, oh yeah, take my stuff that I worked hard for and I built a business around. No. Of course, people are going to protect themselves and they have the right to do so. And this just escalated over time. A few weeks later, we saw the EFF and all these other political parties starting to say, oh, that's racist. Oh no, look at the Indians attacking the blacks, South Africans and the looters, and how dare they? And then it just escalated into what we are seeing now. For forgetting where this actually all started. This from the riots, from Zuma. We can go back and forth on this, but basically, once again, failure of security for the South African citizens. And when I say that, I mean specifically the SAPS, the intelligence officers that are involved in the ANC, because we saw the intelligence department saying, oh, no, wait, we told the SAPS that there was going to be a riot. Then they said, no, I didn't hear about anything, back and forth. All of this craziness that just happened over the riots and leading to what we have seen now. And the EFF basically just taking opportunity, as well as the lady that we saw in the video clip, just taking opportunity to create division, because division, it's divide and conquer for the ANC. That's all it is, and the EFF helps perpetuate that. That's why you only see them talk about that. They have no skin in the game. They don't even know what they're talking about, because like you said, the hypocrisy is real. You want to cry about some Africans that were killed during or by Indians, but you're saying nothing about the 300 innocent people. Some of them, I imagine, were innocent, that lost their lives in the riots. You're not saying anything about that. It's very a one-sided argument here. And the most, I think, important part to mention here is racism is not a major problem in South Africa. It is not. And anybody who falls into that mindset and thinks that it is, again, you are naive and fooling yourself. There are far more bigger issues in South Africa than racism. One of them being unemployment. That is one of the biggest problems in South Africa. And who do we have to blame for that? The ANC.
And just as we end off the conversation, I purposefully put this chap on screen because I don't want people accusing me that, oh, I just put the nice comments on. I always invite disagreement on here, but I want you to see the quality of disagreement I often get, so you can see how shitty it really is. I even saw on my own show. Here's an individual who cannot really put together an argument, really can't. So we'll resort to talking points that they often use, and a personal attack on me that, oh, we only do this because we are kissing up to whites or Indians or whatever the case may be, because they are my masters. And that's
wait.
a racist assertion. Oh, hang on, Joe. I want to build this up, and I'll give all of you a chance. I'll come to you first, Joe. Here's the level of disagreement you often have by people who are so bought by the trash narrative of the racial, or rather racist politicians in this country, that they can't think beyond that box. And that if there's any other individual who happens to share the same skin color as them, who disagrees with them, no, that person must be bought by whites or Indians or whatever the case may be. Just think about how inferior you must think of yourself as a black person to think differently is because there's some other race, that owns you. Joe?
Yeah, well, secretly, I cannot help but laugh at the final message or line there. Let me just check this comment again, where he says, anyway, you need funding from your white master. Do you not understand how racist it is to say that? Do you not get that, Reese? Do you not understand what you are saying? Like, seriously, dude, that is so disrespectful. And you're one of those far left radical woke people that are so naive and pathetic behind your little keyboard. You know what? Come on to Big Daddy Liberty's show, and I'm pretty sure he'll wipe the floor with you in any kind of debate, for that matter. The fact that you even say this and you say that we lie, I mean, all you do is project. So sit down, Reese, shut the fuck up, and have a Coke and a good day. Sorry for swearing.
And by the way, on this show, I invite my detractors. I've always openly said, if you want to be on the show, you disagree with what I say, you're welcome here. You're welcome here. But they never take that opportunity up. So, Reese, this is an open door to you, my brother. Next week, Liberty and Friends, if you want to be a part of the panelists, you're welcome. Koketso, but again, I must end us off here because it speaks to the highly racialized political environment and rhetoric, which some idiots like Abo Reese sap up and lap it up like a cat with warm milk. The inability to think beyond your racial blinkers.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep this as civil as I can, but my advice to people like the guy who just commented there, look, anyone who thinks along those lines, I'd say to you that you really need to meet more people. It's as simple as that. I've met a hell of a lot of people throughout my lifetime. I've met blacks, whites, Indians, rich, poor, educated, uneducated. I can tell you now with absolute certainty that not every white person you come across has land. Not every Indian person you come across treats black people poorly. Not every black person is oppressed either. You know, and I'm one of them. You know, I was born in 1991. I didn't even see apartheid. Well, not according to my memory. I have no business claiming to be an oppressed citizen, because all that does is actually disrespect those who actually are oppressed. You know, I don't want to lie and pretend I'm one of them. I'm not one of them. You know, I don't want to delegitimize them by claiming to be one of them. But long story short, I believe you need to meet a hell of a lot more people. You'll come across that actually we typically share a lot in common. And the outliers who happen to be those who are bad apples, you know, the few racists and the like, those don't represent an entire society. In the same way, me not being oppressed doesn't necessarily represent every single person who looks like me. And I can never say that black people aren't oppressed because I'm not oppressed. Just in the same light, you can never say that all Indians are racist because you happen to know a few that are racist to some others. And this applies across the board anywhere in the world, not just in South Africa. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. Nzuzo, effectively, let me also give you your final word, and then Jarette. You are muted, your brother.
Yeah, you can hear me now.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Looking at this guy's comment, it just borderline. It borders crazy, to be honest. He goes from one story to the other. He doesn't bring evidence. He says that people, whites and Indians, are racist. But then he doesn't show us which of them. And we're not saying that people are not racist. We're saying that, you know, you can't just, you know, pigeonhole the whole race group because of a few certain bad apples. Find those bad apples and put them in jail if they committed crimes. But this guy looks like he's just going to put them all in one box, and he's going to say, and then he goes to black workers. They like talking about this, saying that they badly treat their black workers. Also, no evidence. You just tell us something, dude. You can't just say things and then after that expect us to just take whatever you're saying. There's evidence, show us something. You know, you can't just talk from suck out of the thumb. And then obviously the finisher is, of course, the insult. About the white master. It always has to be a white guy. It always has to be a white guy, you know, black. You know,
why?
And that's why? Why the white guy? You know, why not a Mexican guy? Why not a Chinese guy? Like it's just unnecessary, and it doesn't really bring any value to the conversation. Let's have this conversation. Black, Indian, whites, all are gonna be able and willing to have this conversation. But to come here, it's like the dude who's just watching the fight from the side and saying, yeah, mess him up, F him up. But really, that's all you're doing. You're not trying to break the fight. You're not trying to understand why the parties are saying, and you're not even getting into the fight. You're just speaking from the sidelines, and that's all you do. Mr. Reese, I hope that you come onto the show, tell us evidence, bring us something. But if you're not, don't waste our time. You know, sit on the sidelines and let people who are willing to really change and bring value to the conversation come to the fore. But yeah, man, that's what I just wanted to say.
Absolutely. And again, Reese, you are welcome on the show. Inbox me and I'll keep a nice little spot for you right there on the show so that you can tell us exactly how we're wrong and we can have a go at you. Jarette, last word?
Yeah, man. Listen, Reese just needs a hug. He's one of those guys that clearly needs a hug, and someone just to give him a little bit of love. You know, either that or he's actually the guy that is handling all the PR spin for the EFF names. Maybe that's the guy. I don't know, man. I don't know. But listen, you know, I think that the time for Reese's element is fast moving away in South Africa. You know, we've had it now. I think we've had it as a country with this continuous perpetuated narrative. All of us can see through it. All of us know what's at stake here. We know that we have some building to do. We have some work to do as a nation. And guys like Reese are not going to help us to do that unless Reese changes his attitude. You know, we are in the bottom of the ninth here, as the Americans would say. You know, we're in the last 15 minutes of the second half. We don't have time to waste on nonsense like that. So I suggest Reese helps us pick up the ball and run, because we've got no time, and we behind the line. So we don't have time for rhetoric like that, Reese. I hope you can find some peace in your heart, my friend. I know that your country does not hate you. We love you. It doesn't matter what color you are.
Absolutely. And maybe on that note, let me thank my panelists for having been on the show tonight. Apologies, dear viewer, for the technical difficulties here and there. It must be just the weather. I don't know. Maybe with that being said, just let me do one more round. Guys, your socials, how do people reach you? Joe first.
People can reach me on www.joeemilio.com or just Google Joe Emilio, and you'll find my YouTube channel, Joe Emilio. Very easy, but my website, you can find everything there. And yeah, sorry for the bit of aggro attitude there, but I generally am a very happy-go-lucky kind of guy. But some of these topics were I'm quite passionate about. So yeah, but thanks again for having me on the show, BDL. It was a great pleasure, and cheers, chaps. It was great to see you guys again.
Absolutely. Jarette, how do the folks reach you and support even the movement now that you are a...
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook, Move 1 Million. It's quite a large group. It's got about 500,000 followers. You can also go take a look at our website, www.move1million.com. And I just want to echo what Joe said. It's been fantastic having this discussion. It was a very passionate discussion from all ends, but wonderful to meet you all. And thanks very much for the opportunity, Sitli. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, my brother. That's Jarette Petzer, the founder and leader at Move 1 Million. Koketso, brother, how do we reach you?
Yeah, probably the best place to reach me. Find me on Twitter, Koketso Resane. So I am not a faceless, I'm not a faceless person on social media. Find me there. DMs are open. Bring your arguments, guys, especially if you're on the left. But I will warn you, bring facts, because I carry many. So yeah, bring your facts. Otherwise, I will send you to school and you'll probably block me when I'm done with you. So yeah.
Nzuzo, last word is yours. How do we reach you?
Yeah, everyone can reach me on Facebook, Nzuzo Khati, as well as on Instagram, and obviously as 1/3 of the Manpatria podcast you can find us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, as well as Instagram. Please follow us, like, subscribe. We have reached 1,000 subscribers, and we appreciate you guys. But please tell your friends, tell your family, please, guys. Subscribe, share, like, and yeah, man, get in touch with me and the Manpatria brand through those channels. Thank you.
Ta-da. And that is, of course, Nzuzo Khati from the Manpatria team. Big thank you to all of my guests as I get them off screen. And I say a big thank you to you. Thanks for watching, guys. Super appreciated. If you watched it from the beginning, you saw that little promo video I did. That's coming in a few weeks. That special insights, special documentary on the effects of lockdown on the tourism and hospitality sector. That's coming soon. I'll see you on Wednesday for the Big Daddy Liberty show. And thanks for watching. A reminder, as I always say at the end of every episode, never trust a commie.